It was just another day in the air for Captain Marc Dubois. With 25 years of experience, the excitement he felt every time he sat in the cockpit of the Concorde never waned. On this day, he was in charge of Flight 4590 from Paris to New York. The Concorde represented the pinnacle of aviation, and for a pilot like him, it was an honour to fly it. When the tower gave the go-ahead, Dubois double-checked the systems. Engines normal, fuel pressure stable, he thought. He made brief eye contact with his co-pilot and leaned into his microphone. We're taking off. The Concorde began to accelerate down the runway. At full power, the supersonic plane's 4 engines could lift it off the ground in a matter of seconds. But at about 100 or 80 kilometres, he noticed an anomaly. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw an alarm. That's when the co-pilot yelled, "Fire! Fire on the left side." Marc immediately looked left. In the rearview mirror, he saw a terrible sight, flames spreading along the wing and black smoke rising behind it. Adrenaline flooded his entire body. This was a nightmare, but there was no time to think. He had to keep control. "We have to keep going," he said in a stern voice. It was too late to stop them from leaving the runway. The plane had gained enough speed, but the fire in the wing was growing. Rate of climb. Disappearing. The co-pilot's voice shook with worry. Marc forced the plane off the ground, but the Concorde did not react as he had expected. One of the engines had almost completely failed, and the others were losing power. The fire was eating away at the heart of the Concorde. "Engine 2 is out, we can't climb," said the co-pilot. Marc's hands were on the joysticks, beads of sweat glistening in the cockpit lights. "We're losing control. Try to stabilise the plane." At that moment, the plane lurched violently to the left. Marc tried to regain control, but the plane was powerless. Below them, the city skyline was rapidly approaching. Dubois tried one last time to get away from the hotel buildings for the safety of the passengers. In the cockpit, everything seemed to stop. Sounds and images slowed for a moment. Marc took a last breath, his hands still on the joysticks. At that moment, he thought only one thing. We failed to protect our passengers, and then everything went dark. Dear viewers, today I'm going to tell you the story of Concorde Flight 4590, a black mark in aviation history. This disaster not only claimed 113 lives, but was also a turning point that marked the end of supersonic passenger aircraft. Let's analyse what happened, the causes, the consequences, and the lessons to be learned from this tragedy. What happened? The date is July 25th, 2000. The Concorde was preparing to take off from Paris, Charles de Gaulle Airport for New York. However, during takeoff, a piece of metal on the runway struck the wheel of one of the left main landing gear, causing the wheel to shatter and the shards to damage the fuel tank and start a fire. The plane managed to take off with great difficulty, but the engines quickly lost power, and the Concorde crashed into a hotel shortly afterwards. Causes of the accident. How did this disaster happen? A piece of metal. A small piece of metal that had fallen from another plane earlier on the runway was the first link in this chain disaster. Fuel tank vulnerability. Concorde's design made the fuel tanks more vulnerable to external factors. Fragments from the wheel punctured the tank and caused the fire. High weight and engine loss. During takeoff, the engines lost function due to overload and fire, making the aircraft uncontrollable. Consequences and effects. The Concorde crash ended the golden age of supersonic flight. After this incident, Concorde aircraft were temporarily grounded and subjected to detailed inspections. Confidence in supersonic flight was seriously shaken. Safety protocols in the aviation industry were tightened. In 2003, it was decided to completely retire the Concorde aircraft. This event made not only individuals, but the entire aviation industry more sensitive to risks. What could have been done to prevent the accident? Runway inspections. Runways should have been more rigorously inspected for foreign objects such as metal debris before takeoffs and landings. Fuel tank design. Coating Concorde's fuel tanks with more durable materials could have prevented such a fire. Backup engine assurance. Additional safety systems in the engines in case of fire could have changed the course of the accident. Weight management. The ideal load weight should have been checked before takeoff, and the limits should not have been exceeded. Final words. The Concorde accident has shown us once again how negligence and small details can lead to big consequences. But every disaster contains a lesson to prevent future accidents. The lessons learned by the aviation industry from this tragedy allow millions of passengers to fly more safely today. Let us not forget that no matter how advanced the technology, we must always be careful and vigilant to minimize human error. Thank you